What is up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome. It is Sunday of week 5 of the NFL regular season. You're tuned in to the SuperDraft Sunday study presented by FTN. My name is Zac Graham of the FTN Network. You can find me at Kawaisenberg DFS. And this week, I'm joined by two of my good friends, Javi Prellezo, back again, trying to go back-to-back after a good performance last week. He's at J Prellezo DFS on Twitter. And the Bucks Packers fan extraordinaire himself, Mr. Joe Metz at JMetz34. Joe, we'll start with you since you were out last week. How you been doing?
Good, man. I feel like we're throwing it back to NBA with us three on a stream right now. But, excited. A lot of moving parts on the slate, but I'm excited to dive into everything on the Super Draft side.
Yeah, and Javi, before we get to you, I just want to highlight, and I'll do this every couple minutes, the 250K red zone with 50K up top on SuperDraft is less than half full as we're getting started here, just under 2 hours until lock. So maybe a day to raise your exposure in that tournament if you're already in, or definitely get in there if you haven't registered yet. But Javi, again, no introduction needed for you, man. You are everywhere in the DFS streets, so I appreciate you taking the time again on Sunday morning. How's it going for you leading up to lock here?
Good, man. I'm decked out in Cowboys gear. I'm usually wearing my FTN gear, but you can see it behind me. But I'm ready to rock and roll. You're forgetting with Joe too. The most important thing, he's also a Brewers fan. I don't think he knows what baseball looks like, but it's playoff season for him too.
If the Brewers are in the playoffs, I'm a Brewers fan. Yeah, it's a good time to be in Milwaukee. So.
Yeah, kind of like how I am with my Texas Rangers. It's been a tough decade for us. But let's go ahead and get into it. We're only here for half an hour every Sunday morning, bringing you the Super Draft content for the main slate. Before we get started, though, just a reminder: if you're looking for Super Draft content, you can look no further than ftndaily.com. We have free Super Draft content every week throughout the week. I'll do a preview video kind of Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, looking at some of the early plays of the week. Then you've got Vlad Sedler with a slate breakdown every week, midweek. Joe brings out his top 5 article. We've got a couple other Super Draft discussions, articles, videos that go up, culminating with this stream on Sunday mornings. Again, use that promo code FTN when you deposit. And at any deposit of $100 or more, SuperDraft's going to give you $100 in bonus funds. Javi and Joe, only a 1x playthrough on those bonus funds, so there's no slow drip. People can turn those funds into cash fast. Last thing I want to discuss, just if you're new to SuperDraft, we're a little bit different format here on SuperDraft. We're playing with multipliers instead of your typical salary cap structure. And one thing that I like a lot, Joe, is no defense, no kickers. Like some other sites, I hate messing with those positions. So can you give me like 20, 30 seconds on the roster breakdown here and how you kind of approach building lineups on SuperDraft?
Yeah, I think the way I personally approach a lineup is I usually run 3 lineups a week. Each lineup usually has exposure to probably 3 games max. Like it's the perfect site to like heavily game stack, especially when you find those favorable multipliers, which we'll get into later. But if you have, a 3-man stack on one side where everyone's multiplier is at least 1.5x and you run it back with someone that's like 1.4, like if that game shoots out, you are going to get all of the production with the multipliers and leapfrog the field. So I think stacking is important, I think, on every site, but SuperDraft, I think it's even more important because you have the ability to stack whoever you want because there's no salary cap.
Yeah, it certainly makes for some unique lineup builds, especially when on some of the other sites where you're using salary cap. I always feel like I can fall into patterns week by week. And SuperDraft, again, playing whoever you want, I think adds just kind of that extra oomph to the experience over here. But we'll not waste any more time. About 25 minutes left here on the Sunday study. We'll go ahead and jump into the quarterback plays for week 5. And Javi, I want to start with you. Looking over the show sheet and obviously following who you've been kind of considering all week in the FTN Daily Discord and in all your articles, you and I aren't too far off. So talk about your favorite quarterback plays on SuperDraft this week.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm a high multiplier guy this week, so I'm loving the Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Mac Jones of the world. It's rookie season for me, and Joe knows this. I'm not like the biggest rookie tout, but I think Trey Lance is going to be the chalk, and I think a way to get off the chalk is to go either Trevor Lawrence, who I absolutely love today. I wrote him up, and on SuperDraft, 1.55x multiplier. I haven't played him once this season, but something that I did do for writing up against this Titans defense is they're tied for allowing the most 40-plus yard plays. They've also are top 5 in allowing 20-plus yard plays. So Trevor Lawrence is he just stands out to me. Again, it's super risky going Trevor Lawrence because he hasn't really showed that much upside this season. But going against this Titans defense, I mean, he can I just see like 2 bombs to Marvin Jones or Laviska Shenault here. So it's just a phenomenal spot and a way to get off. And I think no one's going to play Trevor Lawrence just because he hasn't shown that upside. The other guy, Trey Lance, I know Joe's on him too, but it is tough to avoid him at that 1.65x multiplier. Another guy you can just go to instead of Trey Lance if you're worried about that is Mac Jones, 1.65x. He's shown some upside lately, which is great. And I love pairing these guys. I mentioned Jones and Shenault with Lawrence, and then with Mac Jones, you can go Myers, even Bourne there. They got great multipliers today. So that's who I'm mainly on. And if you want a lower multiplier, our very own Debro and Kyle Murray both love Tom Brady. And a 1.2x multiplier, it's not terrible. So stacking him too, but I just prefer these, 1.55x and 1.65x guys.
Yeah, like I said, that's kind of the range I'm in this week as well, especially Lawrence and Lance. And Joe, I think you're with us on those two.
Yeah.
Anything to add on the rookies, the pair of rookies that we're targeting this week? And then
I looking at Javi's list, it's funny because he has 3 rookies and then the oldest player in the NFL. There's absolutely no in between here. But I echo exactly what Javi said with his sentiment. Like, I think with Lawrence too, maybe he hasn't shown like the 3, 4, 5 touchdown upside from the air, but the thing is, he's shown the rushing touchdown upside now. Last week we've seen him attempt over 50 passes in a game. Like, the upside's there at his multiplier. I also like Kirk Cousins quite a bit at 1.35x. He perpetually is one of the most underappreciated fantasy quarterbacks. But now, even if Dalvin Cook plays, it's very clear he's less than 100%. If they are wise, will barely use him, or I think he should sit, which will naturally put more pressure on Kirk Cousins to produce. We saw last time Alexander Madison played, I think he had 7 or 8 targets, so he's going to throw to the running back. Those are easy completions. Has some of the best wide receivers in the league and some of the worst defenses. And again, he just goes under-owned every slate.
Yeah, I agree. As a Dalvin Cook manager in my most important dynasty league, I'm hoping that they sit him today.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Because I've got Madison as well, and so I would obviously slot him in and slot some Madison in to my running back spots in my DFS lineup, so we can go ahead and slide over to running back. Joe, and I'll stick with you. I think we're probably all on the train where Alexander Madison, 1.65x, if Dalvin Cook is out, and you're running multiple lineups, I think you have to get some Alexander Madison at that multiplier, but talk to me about the rest of your running back room.
Yeah, so Madison's obviously one of them at 1.65, but the thing is there are a handful of running backs really close in a multiplier that you can easily pivot to. Some of my favorite being Damian Williams for the Bears, DeAndre Swift at 1.45x, and Saquon Barkley at 1.45x. Those are all 3 very, very when I say underpriced, I just mean they have very generous multipliers. I wrote about it in my article this week, but Damian Williams over the last 3 years, when he has games with at least 15 touches, he doesn't just have games with 15 touches. He averages over 20 opportunities a game, 75 yards, and half a touchdown a game. Obviously, that was with the Chiefs, so it's a much different offense. But the point being, he also averaged almost 5 catches a game in that, so he's kind of game script proof. And with the Bears team, that is very important. The same kind of be said for DeAndre Swift. With so many O-linemen out, I expect the Vikings to actually be able to get pressure on him, which should increase the chance for dump-off passes, which Cook is, I think, 4th in running back targets this year. So that gives him a ton of upside. Barkley 1.45x is just egregious, in my opinion, especially given how productive he's been in the passing game. And I also like I know Javi will touch on Derrick Henry, so I'll leave him for Javi. But Zeke Elliott at 1.4x is also one that I think is just too cheap, given the game script, how effective this running game has been. He's the end zone threat. Like, that multiplier is just insulting at this point.
Yeah, I completely agree. And kind of talking about that Giants-Dallas game, which I think is one that I personally will have some stacks of across the DFS landscape today. But I wanted to back up just for a second. I don't want to leave our guy Charlie hanging here. At the end of that quarterback segment, he was asking about Daniel Jones at 1.4x. Javi, I'll throw this to you first. Any interest in the Giants quarterback?
I'm not really on the Giants quarterback too much. He's shown some upside with using his legs. He's been a very mobile quarterback this year, so there's that. But this Dallas defense has been sneaky good, which is very surprising to me. As a Cowboys fan, I expected them still to be awful, but even with the injuries to the D line, they're still putting pressure on. They're making turnovers, which has been the biggest issue with Dallas for the year. So, Danny Dimes is a guy who will make a ton of mistakes. I think where the upside is with Daniel Jones is potentially garbage time. Like, if Dallas is blowing them out, which, again, I hate to say they are because it is a division game, but if they are, I can see Daniel Jones just having 2 late touchdowns. It's similar to Sam Darnold last week. So I think he's totally fine, but I'm not too high on it today.
Well, there you go, Charlie. And anybody else, any other viewers with questions, go ahead and fire them in the comments, and we'll make sure to get to everything. We'll let Javi get to his running back plays here. Joe was kind of teeing Derrick Henry up for you there. What do you think about the guy with the 1x multiplier, King Henry?
I mean, King Henry, what does he have? Like 50 carries per week? That's what it comes down to? No. And really, Julio Jones is still going to be out. A.J. Brown, we don't know how banged up he is. So they might just rely on Derrick Henry again. And this Jacksonville Jaguars defense is not good. One of the worst rush defenses in the league, one of the worst pass defenses in the league. But Tannehill, he's been struggling this year. They're relying heavily on their workhorse, which is Derrick Henry. 1x is not ideal, but again, we can see a 30, 40-point game, and that's totally fine at 1x. So, especially in this matchup, he's one of my favorite bringbacks here. If you're going Trevor Lawrence with Shenault and Marvin Jones, a great bringback is Derrick Henry or even A.J. Brown, which we'll talk about in receivers. But, it's tough not to go Derrick Henry here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think even on my Tuesday night preview video, my game stack that I was targeting was Tennessee and Jacksonville. So right there with you with Derrick Henry. Again, reminder to everybody that I'll go ahead and refresh my lobby here. But the 250K red zone with 50K up top, still less than half full over at SuperDraft.io. So make sure you're getting in there. It's just crossed 5,400 entries out of a possible 14,000. So definitely some tasty overlay brewing in the SuperDraft lobby, kind of up and down the board. We can go ahead and slide to the wide receiver positions. And Joe, Javi kind of mentioned, again, in this Tennessee-Jacksonville game, A.J. Brown practiced this week, off the injury report, no Julio Jones. This is kind of where, especially the best ball crew, right, early in the summer, before Julio got traded, everybody was salivating at the opportunity to draft solo A.J. Brown there in Tennessee. 1.3x. Talk to me about the young receiver in Tennessee.
I think if you're not playing Derrick Henry in a lineup, which I don't think is the most egregious thing given the fact that he doesn't have an additional multiplier, I think Brown naturally makes a lot of sense as a leverage play on the people that do play Henry, because if you're expecting a lot of production from Tennessee, if it doesn't come from Henry, it's going to come from the passing game. It's just, at the end of the day, like, look at his 2020 and not only the volume, the average depth of target, the touchdown equity he had. Like, that is what assuming he's healthy, he's obviously healthy enough to play. That is what the type of workload I expect in this matchup with Julio Jones out. At the end of the day, without Julio Jones, he is going to by far be the best receiver on this team. So he's going to be the first read for Ryan Tannehill. And this is a very, very winnable matchup, and one that should have a lot of points, as both defenses are pretty egregious. So I'll hint on my favorite stack, but like adding him in a stack with two of my other favorite receivers in Marvin Jones and Laviska at their multipliers right now, it's really hard to pass on. Like, and I don't love Trevor Lawrence on any site besides SuperDraft this week because of his multiplier. So you can go, Lawrence, Jones, Viska, and AJ Brown if you want to add Derrick Henry, you can, but that will, a 99% chance that gives you all the production in this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm very heavy on that game right now in my builds here on SuperDraft. Javi, where do you differ at this wide receiver position? I think we know we're on the Tennessee-Jacksonville game, right? So we don't really have to cover Visca, Marvin Jones again, especially with DJ Chark out, right? More targets for those guys. Where else are you looking at wideout?
Yeah. And something we got to be on the lookout too is running back news. There's a lot of multipliers there based on some news. We're waiting on 3 guys pretty much that, you can just lock into your lineup at running back. But from a wide receiver, the way to differ, I honestly think, we have some great touts at FTN, and usually the best way to do it is see what the consensus is, especially with all the touts. And the main consensus, especially with SuperDraft and everywhere else that we're seeing, is that Mike Evans is not getting much love anywhere. At a 1.3x multiplier against this Dolphins defense, which coming into the season, we thought it would, they'd be one of the better ones, but they've just been roasted in the passing game, in the running game. And it just, Mike Evans is not getting the love. At 1.3x, I think he's a phenomenal one-off. Another guy, if you're not stacking Trey Lance, the chalky QB, you could go Deebo Samuel, but I think he's going to garner some ownership in a stack with Trey Lance. So you can go Ayuk, which no one is talking about. But in case you guys didn't know, we have a multi-million-dollar winner here in Two Guns, and he loves Brandon Ayuk. So I think going that route today is definitely another path to go, especially to be different, because that's where you have to differentiate. You mentioned it, Zach, and I think going Ayuk at a 1.55x multiplier, this could be a great bounce back and to get off that Deebo Samuel's side of things. But, we talked about Marvin Jones, Chenault. Those guys are obviously loves for me, even if you want to do one-offs without Trevor Lawrence. But another guy that's getting zero love, Zach, is Tim Patrick. Cortland Sutton, he had a late injury in the week. There might not be any receivers except for Tim Patrick against this Pittsburgh Steelers team. So we've seen the Steelers defense has been, they can be broken on the ground or even in the passing game. Plus, who's going to throw to them? So it's really just Patrick or no Fant there on that team. If Sutton is banged up, I think he's going to be limited either way. So Tim Patrick sneaky to the moon for me.
Yeah, I like that call. Unfortunately, for my own fandom biases as a rabid Steelers fan, week 1 being the high point of the season so far has been a disappointment for sure. One thing I did want to highlight kind of as we go here, again, we're waiting, as Javi touched on, we're waiting on a lot of running back news here. So
we actually have news, by the way. Sorry to cut you off.
Okay, break it for
us. Yeah. So it looks like Dalvin Cook is not on the field for warm-ups right now. So nothing official, but I would start getting ready to play Alexander Madison all over the place.
Absolutely. And again, Alexander Madison, 1.65x on SuperDraft. So just another high multiplier guy to add to our pool here on SuperDraft. And I do want to touch on, again, I think we're making good time here, over 10 minutes to go on the Sunday study. Let's talk for a minute. I don't know if you guys have pulled up the Super 15 mode or not on SuperDraft, but let's talk about this for a second. I don't have a screen share ready, but you can do it on your desktop or on mobile. I think it actually looks a little bit better on mobile right now.
Yep.
But the Super 15 mode, it's kind of like the Twitter game you see, right, where you get 25 players in a 5x5 box, and the top line's $5, then 4, 3, 2, 1, and you get $15 to build your best football lineup, your best NBA Hall of Famer lineup, whatever it is. On SuperDraft, the Super 15 mode gives you almost like a Connect 4 card of players to click in here. Like the $5 mode right now, or the $5 line, you've got Tom Brady, Derrick Henry, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, and Dak Prescott. Then going on down, just kind of looking at the players you can get in that $1 tier: AJ Green, Tony Pollard, Mark Ingram, Noah Fant, who you mentioned, Javi, and then Miles Sanders. You can play these. These are single entry tournaments on SuperDraft. You can play a free lineup to just get the hang of it. And then they have, I believe, like $1 all the way up to maybe $100 entries. But this is a game mode that I'm becoming more familiar with myself and kind of having some fun with as SuperDraft rolls it out. So I don't know if either of you guys have taken a look at that Super 15 board.
Oh, yeah.
Joe, any Super 15 plays stand out to you?
Yeah, so I mean, we were on the topic of receiver, and it was the one I was going to head next. But AJ Green at $1, like as much as people want to think he's washed, he might be, but the Cardinals don't think he is, and that's what matters the most. He has 6 targets in every game this year. Over the last 3 weeks, he has either 5 catches or a touchdown in every game. And again, this is a matchup like people on paper usually don't target San Francisco, but this total is creeping up towards 50 points right now. Derek Brown is game by game noted just how much faster the 49ers played once Trey Lance came in the game. And we already know how fast that Arizona plays. So this is going to be a high tempo game, lots of scoring. And at the end of the day, I like $1 for exposure to that game is a good deal, in my opinion. Opens up the rest of your build, especially if you want to stack with Kyler Murray for $5 or throw Derrick Henry in there for $5. But also 1.6x multiplier in a main build. I think that's a great run back with Debo and Trey Lance.
Yeah, absolutely. And Javi, any quick takes on Super 15 before we jump back into the positional plays?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few toss-ups there, but I think my favorite one is the $4 range. You know, as much as I like Justin Jefferson and Darren Waller, I mean, I think Devontae Adams should be in that $5 range. I think Devontae Adams is the clear-cut guy that I really like there at $4. He's getting no love, and I think everyone's going to flock towards Herbert because he's like the only QB in that $4 range. But I prefer just to go the QB at the $5 range if you want to go that route, because King Henry's at the $5 range, so you have a decision to make on your ends. But for me, Devontae Adams is the clear-cut guy that I like at $4.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I think kind of interesting now, maybe some dead money in those Super 15 tournaments with Dalvin Cook there. Maybe some people set and forget earlier in the week, so kind of something to attack there. So Super 15, that's something that we'll be looking at more for sure on the Sunday study going forward. But we can jump back positionally now and go to tight end. Javi, I'll start with you. I want to kind of highlight somebody that both of you have that I wasn't on before this morning. Devontae Parker is out for Miami. We saw Mike Gesicki, Jacoby Brissett in for Tua Tagovailoa the last 2 weeks. Started targeting Gesicki a lot more. 1.55x. Javi, is Gesicki a priority for you today, or just kind of in play?
No, it's a big boost. I mean, Devontae Parker, he's confirmed out. He's got 2 guys to throw to. It's Jalen Waddle or Mike Gesicki. We've seen week in and week out that Tampa Bay cannot defend the tight end. For some reason, this amazing defense cannot defend the tight end. They're a bottom 5 team in defending the tight end, so I think Mike Gesicki is totally in play. And a lot of those check down plays that Brissett is going to use is either to the running back or Gesicki, and we've seen the targets increased here for him. So I originally had Darren Waller because I think no one's going to play him, but at 1x, I don't think that's the play today for tight end. For tight end, it's going to be Gesicki, with Parker out, or Ricky Seals-Jones. He's a 1.8x multiplier. We've seen Logan Thomas in 100% of the snaps, and now Logan Thomas is out. So Ricky Seals-Jones is he's gonna fill that role. He's going to be there. It's not the best matchup against this New Orleans defense, but we saw that Heineke loves to throw to the tight end. So Ricky Seals-Jones at 1.8x could get 100% of the snaps here in this spot. So he's totally fine as well.
Joe, any differences for you at the tight end position? Kind of odd when we don't have Travis Kelce on a main slate. You really have to dig into the tight end position.
So I'm with Javi. I'm kind of off of Waller, and it's no indictment of him. It's just the fact that, one, Chicago's top 10 in DVOA against the tight end. He's been getting double and triple teamed every week, and as good of a player as he is, like, he can produce. But at the end of the day, it's gonna be hard to hit his ceiling if you're getting covered like that. And I like Ricky Seals-Jones, but I just don't see enough upside in his matchup against the Saints team that's 5th in DVOA against the tight end position. Really good defensive line. Like, I just worry about the upside there. I think he's a great cash game play. There are really only 2 tight ends I'm targeting. Gesicki is my number 1. Dalton Schultz at 1.65 is my number 2. Everyone is continuing to clamor over Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. Schultz has quietly stepped in. He's taken over the routes and the snaps from Blake Jarwin. He has 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks, 7+ targets in every game this season. He's the tight end one there. And at 1.65x with his touchdown equity, I think he's a very, very strong play.
So I'm going to kind of piggyback on Tim's question for you guys here. Getting down to that 2x multiplier at tight end, he's asking about Anthony Firkser. Again, another player in that Tennessee-Jacksonville game. I'll add one in myself. Dan Arnold, also 2x, traded about a week and a half ago from the Panthers to the Jaguars. We've seen Trevor Lawrence target the tight end pretty frequently throughout the first 4 games. What do you guys think about Firkser at 2x, Dan Arnold at 2x? Joe, I'll go back to you.
I like Dan Arnold more than Firkser. I actually think Dan Arnold, last week was his first week with Jacksonville, and no one thought he was going to be involved at all, and he was. He was the tight end 1, and I think that is a very, very good sign for his stock going forward. DJ Chark being out obviously doesn't help him from like a snap standpoint, but from a usage standpoint, it will. There's more mouths or less mouths to feed now. I don't mind Firkser, but like I just think that offense is going to be so concentrated through A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry where I think there's a lot of risk involved.
Javi, any difference for you there on these 2x guys?
I mean, like I said, this Jacksonville defense is awful. I think taking a shot at Firkser is perfectly fine here. I don't know if I'm going to get that just because of, the upside that we see with Gesicki now with Parker out, or even the snapshot that we're going to see with Ricky Seals-Jones. Joe did not talk me off Ricky Seals-Jones. Hey, I'm still playing him to the moon here with that multiplier 1.8x. But I think Firkser's fine. He continues to burn us every week. I was very high on him coming into the season, but this could be the breakout the game for Firkser. So it could work out. For Dan Arnold, I need to see a little bit more. He recently got traded, but as you mentioned, Trevor Lawrence loves the tight end. So I think it's totally fine too if you want to take a shot here in a few GPPs.
Nobody was higher on Anthony Firkser than pre-Julio trade Derek Brown. I'll just say that.
Very, very accurate. That is very true.
Yeah, and he was bringing me on board the ship right before that trade happened, and then I jumped clean off. Let's close it out here. Javi, I'll start with you, especially in GPPs. Your top stacks on SuperDraft for Week 5.
Yeah, no, I'll go back to it. Trevor Lawrence with Marvin Jones. And Shenault, I think that's perfectly fine. If you want to take out somebody, you can go take out Shenault and go James Robinson, which we didn't really talk about the running back side from my standpoint. But James Robinson at 1.5x, I mean, this could be a great spot as well. It seems he's got a little bit of a role in the passing game, but I expect that to continue to divvy up. So I do like that stack there. We mentioned Trey Lance. He's going to be chalk. It is hard to avoid, as Joe alluded to, but Trey Lance with Debo and even Ayuk, you can go both if you want. If you think there's going to be a shootout there, I think that's another route to go. And there's great multipliers across the board from these 2 stacks. And then lastly, I'll touch on Tom Brady with Evans, and I prefer Antonio Brown, but Chris Godwin is fine. I think Evans is a staple, and our very own Debro, Derek Brown, has talked about how Mike Evans is going to eat this Miami defense up. So. I agree with him. I agree with Kyle. So going Mike Evans and then one of Antonio Brown or Chris Godwin is the path to go.
I love it. Joe, your top stacks.
So I'm actually going to throw a different one in there that I didn't have written down. It's a Bengals-Packers stack with Jair Alexander out, Kevin King questionable. I don't know if he's been ruled out yet, but the Packers already have no secondary. They're losing their top 2 corners again. They already have no pass rush, and we know this with Zadarius Smith out. So if you throw Joe Burrow at 1.45x, I like pairing him with T. Higgins at 1.55, Jamar Chase at 1.4, and then Devontae Adams at 1x. Or if you expect the Packers to lead the whole time, getting Aaron Jones in there, I think is a good play as well. But otherwise, I'm fully on board with the Arizona, San Francisco, like Javi said, as well as the Jacksonville versus Tennessee.
I would throw some homer jokes your way if I wasn't on that Packers Bengals stack myself. So right there with you.
We can flash back to last week too if you really want to.
No, I think it was a good week for you to miss. It was a good week for us not to do an FTN NBA podcast as well. So as we talked about in our DMs, it was a good game, especially for the Packers. That's going to do it for us. Our half hour is up. If you're an FTN Daily subscriber, first of all, if you're not, I don't know what you're waiting for. You can use promo code BEANS. That'll give you 20% off any FTN subscriber package. So head over, ftndaily.com. Sunday NFL DFS Live should be kicking off any minute with Derek Brown, Kyle Murray, and Alex Blickel joining the show this week. Again, every single week at ftndaily.com, we've got free SuperDraft NFL content. NBA is coming soon. Okay, so the SuperDraft content is not going to stop at FTN. So for Javi, for Joe, I'm Zach. We'll see you next week on the SuperDraft Sunday Study. Good luck, everybody.